Thanks for joining us, and welcome to a belated episode 20 of Gridiron Glory. I'm Alexander Cook, and I first want to apologize for not being able to upload a podcast Sunday. I had a very busy schedule on Sunday, and plus the late release of the complete bowl schedule that I'll be bringing you tonight was not available early enough Sunday to do a podcast then. And on Monday, my YouTube account, for whatever reason, got suspended. Now, whatever I did, and I have no idea what I did, I basically appealed and I got my YouTube account back. So we're ready to go on episode 20, a beautiful, beautiful Thursday night. And because it's going to take quite a while to get through all the final college football rankings, the recaps, and the bowl schedule, let's go ahead and talk about tonight's NFL game. Thursday Night Football on NBC, the NFL Network, and Twitter at 8:25 p.m. Eastern Time. A very good game between the Oakland Raiders and the Kansas City Chiefs. Raiders at 10-2, Kansas City at 9-3. This is at Arrowhead Stadium. And let's take a look at offense first. Of course, you know the Raiders sport a fantastic offense. 5th in the nation. The Chiefs, 23rd in the nation. And they're pretty much average with everything, but they win. By the way, for all the people on the NFL Network like Rich Eisen complaining, 21 degrees Fahrenheit's better than some other temperatures. That's how cold it is today at Kansas City. So it's not going to be pleasant for these two teams, especially Oakland, which isn't used to that weather. Anyway, when it comes to defense, two bad teams. Number 30 in defense is Oakland. Number 29 in defense is Kansas City. Number 4 in passing, of course in offense, is Oakland, while number 21 is Kansas City. Number 7 in rushing is Oakland, while number 26 is Kansas City. And here's why I think you're going to see Oakland win this game. It's simply because they have an overpowering offense, and they're playing a terrible Kansas City defense, while Kansas City, they've got a game manager in Alex Smith who won't be able to make the plays he needs to make. They'll score, but they will not score nearly as much as Oakland will score on Kansas City. I mean, just look at the offensive standings. For the Chiefs, number 23 in total offense, number 21 in passing, number 26 in rushing. It just doesn't add up. Oakland's offense wins another tough game, this time on the road at a tough place to play, even tougher when it's 21 degrees Fahrenheit, that being Kansas City. And should be a fun one on Thursday Night Football. We haven't seen many fun ones on paper. And, last week was probably the best one yet on papers, Dallas and Minnesota. That wasn't that great, but, it was a good game. It was 17-15 Dallas in the end as they stopped the Vikings when they attempted a 2-point conversion to tie things up, perhaps going to overtime. But it's lame coming up. Rams 4-8 will play the Seahawks 8-3-1. Of course, that'll change by next week, and of course they'll change the week after that and all that. And then we've got Dolphins taking on the Jets. Dolphins 7-5, Jets 3-9. Giants taking on the Eagles, and 8-4, 5-7 might be a decent game there. Best one yet, at least. And then 4-7-1 Bengals taking on the 6-6 Texans. Finally, we end off with a rivalry on a Sunday. Of course, Bengals and Texans are on a Saturday, December 25th. And this game is Ravens and the Steelers, and what should be a decent game, but we just don't see marquee games on Thursday night. And the concept of oversaturation, I think it's true, because, who wants to watch these terrible games? I don't. Of course, we have a good one tonight, but who really wants to watch these terrible games on just often? Why not watch the news? Why not watch, your favorite comedy show. It just doesn't add up. Now let's take a look at, you probably know this already, but if you don't, the college football playoff top 25. Number 25 is Navy, taking a loss in the American Conference Championship against Temple, which is at number 24 at 10-3. Navy 9-3. They're going to take on Army and Vern Lundquist, one of the greatest announcers ever to call the sport of college football, making his final game. This will be his final game as play-by-play announcer for SEC on CBS. We wish him his best when it comes to his health concerns and his life after football. He'll still be covering golf, specifically in the Masters tournament and the PGA Championship, and he'll be covering March Madness. But we will certainly miss him. One of the greatest in the SEC and one of the more influential people you'll ever find in the SEC. But more important than influences, just being a good person. And you can tell from his style, from just his mannerism, from how he conducts himself, he is a genuine person and one of the best to ever call the sport of college football. As we all wish him his best, I hope you'll join me by doing so on Twitter. And speaking of Twitter, please follow me at the Football Kids. That's at the Football Kids for all the breaking news in college football and the NFL you need, plus live game updates and an update whenever we release a podcast. A better way to do that is subscribe. If you want to know when we upload our podcast, you'll know because it'll be right in front of you, and you will be sure to watch it. Let's get back to the rankings. Number 23 is Pitt at 8-4. Their last game was a shootout, and I mean a shootout in the highest scoring FBS game ever, and I mean ever. And some people say they thought they saw a basketball score. I think I did too. Pitt won 76-61 against Syracuse, and Pat Narduzzi, the coach of the Pitt Panthers, had said he was very proud of his offense. Of course he is, but his defense was not too good. And I agree with him very, very much. Number 22 is Virginia Tech at 9-4. Number 21, Tennessee at 8-4. Number 20, LSU at 7-4. Number 19, Utah at 8-4. Number 18, Stanford at 9-3. Number 17 is Florida at 8-4. Number 16, West Virginia, 10-2. Number 15, Western Michigan, 13-0, off of a big championship game win. Although they didn't play as well as they usually did. I'll talk about that in our recap section of this podcast. Number 14, Auburn at 8-4. Number 13, Louisville at 9-3. Number 12, Oklahoma State at 9-3. Number 11, Florida State at 9-3. Number 10, Colorado at 10-3. Number 9, Southern Cal, USC at 9-3. Number 8, Wisconsin at 10-3. Number 7, Oklahoma at 10-2. Number 6, Michigan at 10-2. Number 5, Penn State at 11-2. Number 4, Washington at 12-1. And still going. Number 3, Ohio State at 11-1. Number 2, Clemson at 12-1. And number 1, you know this one's coming, mighty Alabama at 13-0. Well, now, a lot of people, this was a pretty easy pick, in my opinion. Washington wins the Pac-12 championship game big, and then Penn State had an impressive win over Wisconsin. I don't think you can deny that. Michigan barely lost to Ohio State, but in the end, you've got to go Washington with one more win, one less loss than all of the other teams we're talking about, of course, except for Wisconsin, 2 less losses. And I think and after dominant win in the Pac-12 championship game, that's what got the job done. Now, if Penn State smashed Wisconsin, then we might have a different story coming in here, but they did not. So I agree with the top four totally. Number 1, Alabama. Number 2, Clemson. They didn't have the best game, but they have one loss, and that's a huge thing. They're looking like a good team, especially on offense. But on defense, they've got some work to do. They played in championship games, which is why you saw the Ohio State Buckeyes fall down one spot from number 2 to number 3, and then number 4, Washington. A little bit of controversy with who would be in that 4th spot, but I think most of us agree, unless of course we're biased, and most college football fans are biased. I'm a fan, yes, I am biased, by the way, but I try to hide that in my podcast and my blog, which is gridironglorsportsblog.weebly.com. That's gridironglorsportsblog.weebly.com. But I try and hide it and see if you can guess what team I'm a big fan of. So no controversy there, and we're going to have some good football bowl games, and I'm going to talk about them right now. It all starts on December 17th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, the New Mexico Bowl, and that's between UTSA of Conference USA and New Mexico of the Mountain West. I'm going to give you all of the bowl games right now, and we'll be doing podcasts as the bowl games come up, and I'll give you more details on that on Twitter at the Football Kids. That's at the Football Kids. You'll want to see it because our schedule might be a little different as we prepare for bowl season, as I'll give you the picks then. And come back tomorrow for a Friday podcast where we'll recap Thursday Night Football. Of course, a good one between the Raiders and the Chiefs, at least we hope and expect it's a good one. It'll be a good one tonight. And we're going to have some more action between Army and Navy at West Point. I'm going to give you my pick for that game, my analysis, and much, much more on tomorrow's podcast. You'll want to tune in. Now getting back to our bowl games in the Las Vegas Bowl on December 17th at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Houston of the AAC, American Conference, taking on San Diego State of the Mountain West. In the Cure Bowl, December 17th at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time, we have Arkansas State of the Sun Belt taking on UCF of the American Conference. Then the Camellia Bowl at December 17th at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Toledo of the MAC takes on Appalachian State of the Sun Belt. And to round off our December 17th bowl games, we finish with the New Orleans Bowl at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, December 17th. Southern Miss of Conference USA will take on Louisiana Lafayette of the Sun Belt. On the 19th, we have one bowl game, the Miami Beach Bowl, and it'll be Tulsa of the American Conference taking on Central Michigan of the MAC. On December 20th, we have one bowl game as well. It's the Boca Raton Bowl at 7 p.m. Eastern Time between Memphis of the American Conference and Western Kentucky of Conference USA. And then what should be an interesting bowl, the Poncetta Bowl, on December 21st at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. The only bowl that day, the most interesting bowl up to that point for me, besides the Las Vegas Bowl between Houston and San Diego State, it's BYU taking on Wyoming. Of course, BYU independent. And for those of you who don't know, Wyoming is of the Mountain West. In the Potato Bowl, we're going to have, I know it sounds weird, and I'll give you the full name if you'd like the full name. It's on December 22nd, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, the only bowl that day. Colorado State of the Mountain West will take on Iowa of the Sun Belt. And if you're interested in the full name of the Potato Bowl. It's the famous Idaho Potato Bowl. So my recommendation is to just sit down and enjoy a famous Idaho Potato Bowl. Put some Idaho potatoes, make some cheese, just kind of stir it up, and it'll taste so good when you watch that bowl game that you will actually watch the bowl game without turning the channel. Actually, an interesting bowl game. You might see some people skiing on the telecast like I did last year. Very interesting. For me, at least, right there is the famous Idaho Potato Bowl. The best name, as far as I'm concerned, for any bowl game. And now let's move on to December 23rd at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. It's the Bahamas Bowl, Popeyes Bahamas Bowl. And that's between Old Dominion of Conference USA and Eastern Michigan of the MAC. And they're going to take a nice little trip over to Bahamas. The announcers, not quite sure. Maybe they'll do it from the studio. I think so. I mean, why'd you waste all that night? I mean, come on. I mean, yeah. I know what I'm talking about. And the Armed Forces Bowl is on the 23rd as well at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Louisiana Tech of Conference USA will take on Navy of the American Conference. Dollar General Bowl, December 23rd as well at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. It'll be Ohio of the MAC taking on Troy of the Sun Belt. Hawaii Bowl, the only bowl on a Saturday, December 24th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Honolulu, I think I said that right. Middle Tennessee of Conference USA will take on Hawaii of the Mountain West Conference. On the 26th at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, we have the St. Pete Bowl. And by the way, that means St. Petersburg, Florida. Miami, Ohio of the MAC takes on Mississippi State of the mighty SEC. The Quick Lane Bowl, December 26th, same day, at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We're going to have Boston College of the ACC taking on Maryland of the Big Ten. At least these teams aren't terrible this year. They're just average. But when you're not in the SEC, average means, well, bad. Of course, if you're in another conference, like, say, Conference USA, you do well. But just saying. And then in the Independence Bowl on the same day, we have a lot of those on the same day. We have on December 26th, 5 p.m. Eastern Time, Independence Bowl, as NC State of the ACC takes on Vanderbilt. The SEC, alert, Vanderbilt is in a ball game. Wow. I'm looking forward to see how they do. And by the way, they won against conference rival Tennessee. They won. So Vandy's headed in the right direction. I like it. Heart of Dallas Bowl, December 27th at noon Eastern, as Army Independent takes on North Texas, Conference USA. The Military Bowl in Annapolis, Maryland, December 27th, same day, at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We have Temple of the American Conference taking on an average in the ACC, Wake Forest. Then the Holiday Bowl, and this is a matchup I'm a fan of. We have on December 27th, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. We have some good ones on that day. Washington State of the Pac-12 taking on Minnesota of the Big Ten. Interesting matchup there. First real, kind of, it makes you think, wow, this is, for real, this is somewhat big time. Not really big time, but it kind of gets you that feeling. We're really heading into this bowl season. And then the Cactus Bowl, same day, but we'll probably go into the next day too. December 27th at 10:15 p.m. Eastern Time. Baylor, the Big 12, takes on Boise State of the Mountain West. Next day, Pinstripe Bowl, December 28th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. We've got some games that day in New York City. Northwestern of the Big Ten out of Chicago visits that big, bad New York City. Just getting I hate to be mean to the New York City people, but Chicago hates New York City. And I just made that generalization out of thin air. I know it's not true. Well, it may be true. Well, no comment. As they take on Pittsburgh of the ACC. Russell Athletic Bowl, December 28th, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time, Miami, Florida, of the ACC takes on West Virginia of the Big 12. Kind of big feeling. It's kind of like middle feeling, okay? And most of you, although some of you won't, will finish your night with a game at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time at Santa Clara, California. You know what that means. Levi's Stadium, the home Super Bowl 50 Foster Farms Bowl between Indiana, the Big 10, versus and Utah of the Pac-12. And you'll get to hear the voice of Gus Johnson, the most exciting announcer in sports. So you will want to watch that game whether you like the matchup or not, because you need to hear Gus Johnson. Just saying, it's on Fox. You must listen to Gus Johnson. That's why you should forget the Texas Bowl. Just kidding. This is probably a better bowl game, but still. Texas Bowl is December 28th at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Kansas State of the Big 12 taking on Texas A&M of the mighty SEC. Birmingham Bowl on December 29th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. You know, USF of the American Conference is not that great, not that bad. And South Carolina of the SEC is, we thought would be atrocious, but they're average. They would probably do well, decently in other conference. Better. But they're average. So, yeah. Birmingham Bowl. Off them there. I hope you enjoy the Little Kid Bowl, South Carolina. You think one day you can get in the Belk Bowl? Yeah. You think? You better hope so. You mean that? I mean that, South Carolina. You better hope so. I'm looking at you. Yeah, I know. Belk Bowl, December 29th at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Virginia Tech of the ACC takes on Arkansas of the SEC. Alamo Bowl, December 29th, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Our first big, and I mean big time matchup. Oklahoma State, Alamo Bowl, Big 12, taking on Colorado, the Pac-12. Definitely a game I would stay up to watch, as long as it doesn't turn out to be a blow. Just saying. Liberty Bowl on December 30th at noon, as TCU of the Big 12 takes on Georgia, the mighty SEC. Well, Georgia's average, but the SEC's mighty, just because they have Alabama. Sun Bowl, December 30th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time here. Well, he's already made a debut, but here his Sun Bowl debut. That's right. Here, Brad Nessler's Sun Bowl debut as UNC, the Tar Heels of the ACC, takes on Stanford of the Pac-12. Decent matchup there, one that I'll likely tune into. And flip back and forth with the Music City Bowl, which begins December 30th at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Nebraska, the Big 10, takes on Tennessee of the SEC. And don't even get me started on Tennessee's nervous breakdown against, well, you know who. Against Vanderbilt. I told you not to get me started, so I'll get you. Yeah, I'll get you. Yeah, I know. Okay. Arizona Bowl, December 30th at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Air Force of the mighty Mountain West takes on South Alabama, the Sun Belt. And you'll want to watch this on the American Sports Network if you're an American Conference fan, but this isn't even American Conference sports. Yeah, no comment. And you'll end your day on a good note. Not one of those weird, like was that, like the Arizona Bowl or something? It'll be the Orange Bowl, December 30th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. From Miami Gardens, Florida, it's Florida State of the ACC taking on Michigan, which fills in the SEC/Big Ten/Notre Dame spot in what should be an interesting matchup over in Miami. Of course, I'll break that down as we get closer to the date of that game. Are you ready for the Citrus Bowl? It's on December 31st, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Orlando as LSU takes on Louisville. Of course, LSU of the SEC, Louisville of the ACC. Next up, if you're ready, yeah, I know you're ready, we have another 11 a.m. matchup, Tax Slayer Bowl. December 31st, New Year's Eve, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Jacksonville, Florida, it's Georgia Tech of the ACC taking on Kentucky of the SEC. Kind of one of those outlier bowls that are decent but not very good. And we'll end off with the Outback Bowl, January 2nd at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Florida, the SEC, takes on Iowa of the Big Ten. Another game in which, yeah, Florida's kind of in a similar situation last year. So should be interesting. Is Michigan kind of similar situations? They play another team from Florida. At 3 p.m. Eastern Time on the December 31st. Are you ready for the semis? That's right. Peach Bowl will open things up in Atlanta. Number 1, Alabama, taking on number 4, Washington. The final game, final Peach Bowl at the Georgia Dome. Are you ready? You are? You better be ready. I tell you, you better be ready. Because things are about to get big. 3 p.m. Eastern Time. I know that's what I'll be watching. Fiesta Bowl, December 31st at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. More and improved semifinal action. Of course, Alabama, Washington could be phenomenal, or it could be not so interesting. Give me both. Yeah, number 2, Clemson takes on number 3, Ohio State. Fiesta Bowl. The lights will be shining bright over in Glendale for what should be a very fun semi matchup. And you'll end the bowl season before the College Football Playoff National Championship with the Cotton Bowl, January 2nd at 1 p.m. Eastern Time in Arlington, Texas. This is an at-large versus an at-large with Western Michigan at-large taking on Wisconsin at-large. Rose Bowl, the Rose Bowl. Tournament of Roses, the granddaddy of them all. January 2nd at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Pasadena, the right location for the home team. There's a home team this time, kind of. Well, pretty much yes, because it's in Los Angeles. Yeah, USC. Oh, I give it away. Penn State in the Big Ten takes on USC in the Pac-12. We actually aren't seeing Stanford. It's incredible, isn't it? Yeah, it's incredible. And finish off your bowl season before the College Football Playoff National Championship game. And I mean it this time with Brent Musburger at prime time. Sugar Bowl, January 2nd at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. The location, New Orleans. The matchup, Oklahoma, the Big 12, and Auburn of the SEC. So, as we just heard, some phenomenal matchups in this bowl schedule. Some matchups that they don't really sound that good, but are actually really ones to watch out for. We have sleepers that'll come creep on us and tell us to go watch their game. And we have games that we basically know we don't want to watch. We have it all. your favorite team, we would hope, or I would hope not, or maybe I'd hope, is in the schedule. Best of luck to them as they hope to end their season off on a good note. And, of course, we all want to know when the big game, the college football playoff national championship. But that's important, right? You bet your sweetheart it's important. The college football playoff national championship game. And are you ready? Tampa, Florida, Monday, January 9th. And what a game this should be. We will have either Alabama or Washington, or Alabama or Washington, and either Clemson and Ohio State come to this one game to decide the college football world. And things are going to get really, really big. That's for sure. And I can tell you that much. And now, another belated set of things to do. Let's recap Week 14 of college football action before the end of our podcast. And preview Week 15. We'll give you our pick tomorrow and a more detailed preview. Army-Navy, College Game Day will be there. Vern Lundquist will be there one final time. And we will have an interesting and hopefully a fun game between those two teams. It all started out on a Friday night, December 2nd, as number 8 Colorado went over to Levi Stadium. I know I keep saying this even though it's old, but the home of Super Bowl 50 to take on the number 4 Washington Huskies. And it was close up front, but in the end, Huskies rolled 41-10, your final. But Jake Browning didn't have the best of nights. Only 9 of 24. Missed several open receivers on just basic routes. They were wide open. They were right there, sitting there, and they just threw over their heads. It did not look pretty, to put it lightly. But he was 9 of 24 for 118 yards and 2 touchdowns. He will need to have a much cleaner game against mighty Alabama. Also that night, a MAC championship game between Western Michigan and Ohio. Big stage for Western Michigan. They took it against Toledo. Could they take it at Ford Field in the largest and the most tickets sold ever for a MAC championship game as an undefeated Western Michigan team took on the 8-4 Ohio Bobcats? Things were close. They had to hold on. Things weren't pretty. They did not look like a New Year's 16, but tell you what, they are. Look at all their other games. But they had to win before I can keep saying row the boat. And they rowed the boat late to hold on to get a 29-23 win, despite the opponent scoring 16 points in the second half compared to their 6. So Western Michigan onto the Cotton Bowl Classic against the Wisconsin Badgers. But why isn't Wisconsin a better bowl game, you might complain or say? Why aren't they in the Rose Bowl? I'll tell you in just a little bit. And on Saturday, December 3rd, we had number 1 Alabama taking on number 15 Florida. Could they beat Florida worse than they beat Auburn? The answer was, you bet. Alabama rolled 54-16. Not even close. Some other games, we had the American Athletic Conference Championship as Temple gets a big and easy win over Navy, 34-10. Now, Temple, of course, in the rankings at number 24. And Baylor took on number 16 West Virginia in some boring action besides the championship games. And, Congratulations, West Virginia. You held on, and now you're on to a decent bowl game. Number 10, Oklahoma State took on number 9, Oklahoma. And the Sooners got the job done. Boom-a-suma! 38-20 was your final. And then we had some close ones, starting with number 3, Clemson, taking on, at the time, of course, these are at the time rankings, number 23, Virginia Tech. And things were really close down the stretch. Back and forth game, a lot on the line. It was 21-14 at halftime. Then, after the third quarter, Clemson started to pile it on. It was 35-21, but then Virginia Tech was in striking range. Your final, 42-35. The Clemson Tigers held on to get another ACC championship game and a college football playoff berth. But can they get past Ohio State? Is the question that I'll answer down the road. Find out when by following me on Twitter at the Football Kids. That's at the Football Kids, and subscribing, so you'll know when I release every single podcast. And finally, a tale of two halves between Wisconsin and Penn State. At the time, Wisconsin number 6, Penn State number 7. Well, here's what happened. At halftime, Wisconsin was rolling 28-14, but then Penn State tied up, and of course, Wisconsin scored a field goal, so they did tie it up. So it's 31-28. Wisconsin's probably going to hold on. I mean, they can't win. Yeah, they can. Penn State coming out of nowhere, down 14 points, at one point 21 points, came back all the way to secure a 38-31 win. Second half has been huge for James Franklin and company this year. He keeps his job, and his Penn State Nittany Lions are on to the Rose Bowl to take on a very hot, just like their team, a very hot USC team. And our only Week 15 action is number 25 Navy going on the road against Army. This is actually not West Point. This is at Baltimore, Maryland, at M&T Bank Stadium. I'll give you my pick for this game on Friday, and I'll recap Thursday Night Football on NBC, the NFL Network, and Twitter. Well, thanks for joining us for this 20th edition of Gridiron Glory. I'm Alexander Cook. Once again, I apologize about the late release of this podcast. Unfortunately, it's due to first just scheduling didn't work out, and then which is partially my fault, and then YouTube breakdown. I submitted the appeal. I finally got through, and yes, it worked. Luckily. Please spread the word. If there's one thing you can do for me, it's spread the word. It's the only thing I would like you to do. One thing. If you don't do anything else, please spread the word. Second, please subscribe so you know whenever I release a new podcast. Every subscribe means the world to us, and as a special reward, I plan to shout you out. I'm going to shout someone out here. My first subscriber, Xavier Graves. Thank you, Mr. Graves, for being nice enough to subscribe to me. His channel has just mostly been subscriptions, no videos here, but very nice of you, Mr. Graves. I personally commend you for that, and please tell others to subscribe to my podcast. Everyone, I will shout you out right here on the airwaves. All you have to do is subscribe to my podcast. It's that simple. And also, please follow us on Twitter at @thefootballkids. Please check out our blog at gridironglorysportsblog.weebly.com. That's gridironglorysportsblog.weebly.com. Follow us, I was going to continue. Follow us on Twitter at @thefootballkids. That's @thefootballkids. Check us out on Facebook by searching Gridiron Glory Sports Podcast. Check us out. And follow us on Google Plus by searching Gridiron Glory Sports Podcast. Well, that's all I have on this 20th edition of Gridiron Glory. Thanks for joining us once again. Please spread the word, and please do everything you can, very simple things, to help us get more viewers and more listeners. And we'd like to thank, of course, all the regular listeners. Personal shout out to Lynn Mills right here, being a very interactive, a very educated, a great listener for our program. You want a shout out? All you have to do is subscribe or talk to me on Twitter at @thefootballkids. Give me some good conversation, and I will make sure you get heard. Well, once again, that's all for episode 20 of Gridiron Glory Sports Podcast. From the studio, I'm Alexander Cook saying so long and enjoy Thursday night football. See you tomorrow.